There we are, okay.
I want to welcome all of our viewers to this free preview of the upcoming episode of the Intelligence Assessment with Kevin Shipp. I'm pleased to have Kevin here with me. How are you today, Kevin?
Good, Jason. Good to be with you again, man.
Yeah, likewise. And, you know, we're still covering 9/11. It was a little over a week ago, was the 17th anniversary, but this is such an important topic, Kevin, and as you and I have discussed privately on so many occasions, there's never been a proper criminal investigation into 9/11, and that in and of itself is quite curious, wouldn't you agree?
Oh, that's absolutely true. And that simple fact is what hid a lot of the very concerning things about 9/11 from the American people, even from Congress. Just calling it a terrorist attack put a stop to all criminal investigation. That's been my point for the last year, covered up a lot of evidence.
Yeah, and as we are doing each week, we're doing this preview live stream to let everyone know that we've got a show that is exclusively available to Patreon subscribers in our Only on Patreon series, and that will be the Intelligence Assessment with Kevin Shipp. People can enjoy that program by sponsoring Kevin on Patreon at patreon.com/Kevin_Shipp, or of course by sponsoring Crowdsource the Truth on patreon.com/Crowdsource the Truth. And Kevin, as you and I have discussed quite frequently, this is really an important thing that we're doing, not just so that you and I can sustain this effort, but to avoid getting knocked out of social media completely, as we've seen happen to so many people. Mike Adams, the health ranger, Alex Jones, of course, has been deplatformed. So this is a good way for us to get these weekly intelligence assessments out to the audience, and we really want to grow that Patreon audience.
That's right, Jason. I mean, they're kicking more and more people off, at least by the month. I think the head of the walkaway, the guy who created the pound walkaway movement, they kicked him off. They've kicked several people, as we know, off of YouTube and Facebook, and it's gotten really out of hand. So Patreon is a great way to put a kind of a block between us and the thousands of trolls that are out there, the algorithms they've been using, and all of these scammers that try to get into your and my networks and post garbage. Patreon so far has just been working very, very well in that regard.
Yeah, it definitely helps us focus the information and the dialogue on the most serious viewers, and
yes,
we've got to thank our generous sponsors. We would not be able to continue doing this work without that sponsorship. And of course, for people who haven't yet seen the Intelligence Assessment with Kevin Shipp, you've really put together a fantastic format, Kevin. I think people are really enjoying these PowerPoint presentations that you do, because it really gives everyone the sense that perhaps someone might have in a high-level briefing that you were doing back in your days at the CIA.
That's right, Jason. I use the format I use in the CIA, and just through studies, it's the best way to retain information. Seeing you and I personally on the screen, hearing our voice discussing it, and then reinforcing that with the slides is the best way for people to come away with the information, really, that I found so far. So I'm using the same technique that I used when I was a senior briefer at the CIA.
And you've put together a fantastic guest for today. I must admit to my ignorance, you know, last week Ole Damagard and I did an episode, or sorry, it was earlier this week, where we actually went to the new World Trade Center, the Freedom Tower, and I had Ole on the mobile Skype system, so it was a really exciting way for Ole to see the tower. And Ole had mentioned Chris Boland to me, which I was not aware of Chris's work, and people watching may say, how could you not know? I just, you know, nobody can know everything about everything, and we get into a lot of different topics. And then, of course, you now have introduced me to James Perloff, and I've learned in my research preparing for today's episode that these two gentlemen work together very closely, and I have to say, they have presented the most carefully researched and evidence-backed case to demonstrate Israel and specifically Mossad involvement in 9/11. I've heard many sort of, loose statements and unsubstantiated things that people have said around the internet, and it's mostly coming from, frankly, ignorant, anti-Jewish people and groups, but these two gentlemen are not that. They are very scholarly, well-researched authors, and they present compelling evidence. So we'll be on in just 25 minutes, only on Patreon, with James Perloff. And Kevin, if you could, why don't you take us through just a little preview of what you've got prepared in terms of your PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, and I'd encourage everybody out there to bring your skeptics, because this is an evidence-based discussion. And we'll get into some facts that you just can't ignore. Kind of a summary as we move into Patreon at 7. I put a slide up for everybody to see. It's some kind of high-level, really critical indicators of this thing. When the government, the Bush administration, labeled this a terrorist attack, what that did was bring to a halt any criminal investigation of the fall of the towers on Tower 7. Just put a grinding halt on it. In addition to that, evidence was removed or destroyed, the most important of which is the steel from the towers themselves was removed the next day, shipped to China, and melted down. Probably the most important evidence in the collapse of those towers was sent to China, of all places, and then melted down, never to be seen again. You just don't do that. That was a huge crime scene. Even when I did crime scene investigation for terrorist attacks, we would have 8, 9, 10 blocks as a crime scene. They didn't go there. We know now that the Bush administration had very close ties with Saudi Arabia. You can see the picture I have down at the bottom of this screen of George W. Bush in kind of an embarrassing moment with the Saudi prince. We'll just leave it there. Also, I think what most people don't know is the Bush family themselves had oil contracts with the bin Laden family going back more than 20 years, and a fact that was conveniently hidden. After the 9/11 attacks the very next day, George W. Bush secretly flew the bin Laden family out of the United States during a national travel ban, and did that without anybody knowing it. And here's another kicker. George W. Bush ordered 28 pages of the 9/11 Commission report blacked out. And you can see the senator down at the bottom right with showing those pages to the media and demanding that they be unredacted. As you can see, the entire pages are blacked out. And Jason, you know how much distaste I have for the government blacking out information because it doesn't want the American people or Congress to see it. Right. Well, this is a classic example. George Bush ordered that. When the pages, after the demands of Congress, when the pages were finally unredacted, if those were the only ones that were unredacted, it indicated Saudi Arabia funding of the hijackers, the terrorists in the 9/11 attack, all connected back with G.W. Bush, the oil contracts with the Bush family. That is shocking. I would encourage everybody to go out there and check that out for themselves.
It is shocking, Kevin. And you know, I am guilty of this myself. Something I realized over the past week of watching Chris Boland's videos and James Perloff's videos is that 9/11 is such a complex thing, both in the technical execution of it and the involvement in all the players. I think as individuals, we're very prone to want to blame it on somebody, to say, oh, it was Saudi Arabia, oh, it was Israel, oh, it was George Bush and Dick Cheney. But just like the JFK assassination, where for years people argued about the Cubans, the CIA, the mafia, all the different players, I believe we're in a situation where it's all of the above. And the thing that caused such a negative reaction in me as a secular American Jewish person was that so many of the people that want to, blame Israel, they just say, well, the Jews did 9/11. And it's a gross generalization that I think is not true. Even saying Israel did 9/11 or Mossad did 9/11, I don't think is correct. I frequently think back to people that I know personally, like yourself, who have been involved in these secret clandestine agencies, and I know you as a personal friend. I know you didn't join the CIA because you understood that it was this sinister agency. You had good intentions. And at some point during your tenure there, you realized that there were some bad people in that organization, and maybe they were at the top and maybe they were doing things that were very, very bad. So I've begun to suspect that something similar exists within Mossad, within Saudi intelligence, and what we've got is a criminal cabal of globalists who are individuals who have no respect for national sovereignty, even their own. They are concerned with themselves, they are concerned with their plans for world domination and a one world government where no one is elected. These wealthy, elite, military, financial, intellectual elites take control and do what they want.
I think you're right on target, Jason. This attack was so massive and so corrupt and had international connections that I think you're right on target. And I would encourage people regarding this New World Order to go in and really research that, because of course the media is trying to shoot that down as they do any case that they don't want gaining popularity, especially with some of their CIA connections. But James Perloff does an excellent job on the New World Order and has written a book about that. People need to understand that this is a global ring of globalists, and one of their primary targets is the elimination of the sovereignty of the United States. They have to do that, and the Constitution. They have to do that if they're going to bring the U.S. into their global circle, and that is exactly what they're trying to do.
Wow. I mean, that's the thing. You peel away the layers, and when you think you have some perception of, what happened on 9/11, you stumble upon some more research, whether it's Dr. Judy Woods and all the evidence she has of directed energy, or James is talking about mini nukes, and he's got very plausible, scientific, evidence-based explanations for every one of his claims. So I'll be fascinated to speak with him and have our episode, which is coming up in just 18 minutes. So before we close out this little preview, is there anything else that you'd like to share, Kevin, right now?
Yeah, Jason, just this. I implore people to look at the evidence. I've got a friend who just refuses to see it. And it is a very difficult psychological line to cross, thinking that perhaps portions of our government or global elites could possibly have done something this horrible. That is a difficult psychological boundary to cross, and most people just put their hands over their ears and their eyes, like my friend. I implore people not to do that. Just to open their eyes and their minds and look at the evidence, especially what we're about to present, as any investigator would, and take it from that angle, and you're going to see a story that is shocking to the core, but it's something that we have to address.
Yeah. And while we have our broader YouTube audience with us, I do want to remind everyone to visit fortheloveoffreedom.net. You can purchase Kevin's book from the Company of Shadows, and you're also going to get access to the decoder that allows you to learn what the CIA wanted to redact from the book, and actually did redact in a method that is essentially illegal. This was not classified information. It includes information, Kevin, that you assembled from private contractors investigating your own home. So it's an interesting insight into how the CIA operates, not only in terms of your experience there, but them trying to suppress this information from coming out to the general public. So that's an exciting book that people should read. And I do want to remind people that they can get exclusive access to tonight's 7 p.m. broadcast by going to patreon.com/Kevin_Shipp with 2 P's, or patreon.com/crowdsource the truth. We're going to be starting there in just 15 minutes. So, Kevin, what I'll do is let's break from this broadcast and get everything reset for our exclusive Patreon stream, and I'll see you in just 15 minutes. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Big thank you to all of our Patreon sponsors, and we'll see you in 15 minutes only on Patreon.